Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements live today. Of course, Trace Elements Radio, Revolution Radio, Studio A. We're going to have a guest today, Chief Charles Twodog, because I'm going to need some help. OCO, Twodog.
OCO, honey.
So, we have a lot of news today.
Well, I'm here to help you with it.
From outer space to all the way down to your DNA, which we're going to blast apart. Now, I've brought Twodog in today because obviously I need help. Let me explain what's going on, because it's difficult for me. But if I don't explain it to you, you won't understand. So, a lot of people have been wanting to contact me lately. It's a really bad idea right now, because I have as close to brain damage as you could get. This is what MS does. And I know there's a new lesion today, because I just know. My left brain is almost non-functional right now, so I have a hard time walking. Speech is difficult, although that's what I've been doing for the last 2.5 weeks, trying to get that back. I'll be going through physical therapy, but this is going to take a while for me. Twodog can understand this, because he has the same problem. And I needed someone with me who could really get how I'm feeling. So know that I'm probably going to say some very inappropriate things. I have no sense of time right now at all. So it's going to be different. We're going to have some fun. It's what I've been trying to keep from everyone for a while, but I can't hide it. It will take a long time to get better if it does. So that's where we are. Do you want to say anything at this point, Twodog?
Well, right now is brothers and sisters out there, give prayers up to whatever you call the Creator to help this sister out. And Tracey, you know me. I'm going to be here right by your side through the whole thing. That's just how I am with you.
It's true. It's odd. It's the first time I've really noticed what these MS outbreaks are like. I actually put something on the page. Neurologist who had a stroke. I put that on Saturday, a couple days ago anyway, and she explains it very well what this side specifically, damage on this side of your brain does. Know that I can tell when people are lying now, so don't call me with a whole bunch of shit. Excuse my language. See, because I'm going to know, and I feel more than I think. So let's start. Let's go way, 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 way up in the air first, because I'm going to take you from there and take you to the planet. We're going to blast through our organs in Oregon, and then we're going to go right down to DNA. We'll go through the waters of Flint. We will go straight to hell, as a matter of fact. So there's a lot. So here's my first update. We've talked about this before, but there was a massive unidentified object spotted in space. No one knew what it was. I've shown you pictures. It looks like a bird, kind of. I have pictures. Comet-like asteroid. That's P 2010 A2. January 29th, 2010, from Hubble spacecraft. If it's a UFO, we don't know. but it's about the size of an entire stadium. Reported by NASA, not one of those fake NASA that NASA said things. No, really reported by NASA. There's also a Michio Kaku interview from Fox News talking about this. Several other videos talking about this thing. So, the video was from 2010. It's a pretty amazing thing. So what is it? First discovered again on ground-based LINAR images, January 6th. The object appeared unusual because it changed, and I think Twodog and I talked about it before, and it stopped and changed shape and continued. So, investigating this with a Hubble Space Telescope, the picture of what Hubble saw is unlike any object ever seen. At first glance, it appears to have the tail of a comet. Closer inspection, however, shows a 140-meter nucleus offset from the tail center. Very unusual structure near the nucleus. No discernible gas in the tail. Now, knowing the object orbits in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The theory that appears to explain all of the known clues is that P2010A2 is debris left from a recent collision. If that's true, the collision occurred at over 15,000 kilometers per hour, 5 times the speed of a rifle bullet, and liberated energy in excess of a nuclear bomb. Pressure from sunlight would have spread out debris from the trail. Future study of this may indicate nature of the progenitor, the first collision, the mother-father itself. It may help humanity understand how the solar system was originally created. It's I don't know if you had a chance to look at the pictures. I put a whole bunch up today, Twodog, but it's pretty bizarre.
It is bizarre, but the thing about it, that's as far as speed is concerned. That is extremely hard to even fathom how fast that can happen.
Yeah.
How that happened. And as far as being, the atmosphere of the outer space in that itself, it's a mystery, isn't it? Everything that happens out there. What we on the Earth have to worry about is what has happened before here, whatever, like meteors or whatever, we still have to watch out for.
Yeah, they're coming. They haven't stopped. They're actually increasing now.
They're increasing. Exactly.
So, we have a lot going on. Then there's that structure in space that it's not the same thing. I'm going to try to find it. It's so funny. Whenever anything happens now, I'm looking at it and it's like, what is that? Took me a minute to the phone rang earlier, and I realized I don't know how long I was standing there looking at it. I didn't pick it up. It just seemed really odd.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was me.
Was that you? I'm looking at it going, what is this thing happening right now? It's good though. By the by the 5th time you called, I realized, that for the
Yeah,
show.
but I was supposed to be on with you today.
There's Twodog's coming on today. We're doing a show. What are we talking about? I'll think of something. Oh, yeah. So it's something else, guys. I kid you not. So we, also, there is this megastructure in space. They're calling it a megastructure, I guess, because they have no clue what the heck this thing is. And at first they said it's an anomaly, they made a mistake, it's a strange thing that just showed up. I'm like, what kind of strange thing? What is it? So, our latest update, I have to look for that one now. Yeah, I have nothing ready. I thought I had stuff ready, and then I guess I stared off into space for Lord knows how long. So I'll find it.
I'll tell you a thing we can actually do also, Trey. Because, how to put it, we've been losing some major influential people in the past month.
Huge.
Also,
Mott the Hoople.
Huge amount of people, and cancer is eating people up left and right. You know,
fast
even
too.
within these great stars that we've been watching for generations.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of generations now. And how do I put it? I've lost a musical hero myself. A couple of musical heroes lately.
Mm-hmm.
That has influenced thousands of people. We've lost, Lemmy as far as that, but we also lost Mr. David Bowie.
Yes.
Which
thanks for reminding me. We're going to talk about him too. And Dale Griffin, he died at 67. He died January 18th.
Mm-hmm.
His drummer. Bowie's drummer.
Oh, man.
And co-founder of that
one of the
group.
Eagles just died. One of the Eagles just died a couple of days ago also.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like something's going on, because we're losing the they're, of course they're getting up there in age, but
it's sudden. We also lost the man who played Snape around the same age, in the Harry Potter things.
Yeah. Yes.
And
so we're losing major people.
We also lost the fourth oldest tree on this planet. So I wonder if it has something to do with a lineage, a certain ancient lineage on this planet, because trees are involved in that we've just lost. And it's something I wanted to talk about, because as we're circling down towards Earth, Bowie, the Starman, has just returned to the sky. And this legend is now finished. The story told, its ending, could not have been more perfectly constructed or executed. Because it said that the great ones know when to leave the stage. The greatest ones also know how. So a little less than 3 years ago, David Bowie released what I called the last rock and roll album, and pulled off what some critics labeled as the greatest comeback since Elvis in '68. Do you remember that acoustic thing that he did, Elvis?
Yes, I do. And
it was surprisingly really good. I've seen it. So hardcore Bowie fans like myself were a little bit hurt by the critical response to The Next Day. That's what it was called. Not because we didn't appreciate all the praise, but because they wondered where these critics had been hiding while David had been making important music on stage and off. Like the BBC radio concert, the A reality DVD for starters,
Right.
and things in the studio. Outside, earthling, heathen. But the next day was a landmark that no one expected to ever hear from Bowie again. Not after he suffered a coronary event on stage in 2004 that preceded a very long and troubling silence. No one certainly expected him to return with an album filled with top-ranked material designed to serve as an end piece to that pop rock phase of his career. Now, viewers still expected him to follow up with Black Star, an experimental set, jazz, influenced post-rock apocalypto, designed to serve as his epitaph.
Right.
He had also been working on a theatrical sequel to The Man Who Fell to Earth, which I hadn't heard about until a couple of days ago. Currently, The Man Who Fell to Earth is enjoying a sellout run in New York at the same time as the recording Black Star. While dying of cancer, he was dying of cancer while he was recording. It can only add to the legend of a man not quite human, something more than most. Anyway, what must be said is that Bowie runs through a lifeblood of what's going on now. All the work that I've done, for sure, so it's no surprise to my longtime listeners, because I've talked about his work many, many times, because I can still remember the effect hearing Fame had on my very young mind when my parents were playing him, and how it seemed like a transmission from a far stranger world, a world that I actually wanted to go. But soon enough, I was reading the Time magazine review of The Man Who Fell to Earth, realizing that this Bowie thing was a completely different type of phenomenon, one I best pay attention to, really. And yeah, I was a weird young kid, still the same. The effect was only cemented by golden years, sound and vision, which stood out like a holographic intruder on this ancient and ridiculous AM radio top 40 wasteland. Now, of course, my shelves were filled with Bowie biographies, and that I had no idea how utterly alien this man was, how these albums that redefine the course of popular music seems to burst fully formed from his fevered brain, to the literal astonishment of the people he worked with. What you don't know about Bowie is he spent hundreds of thousands of hours immersed in his occult library. His occult library is, matter of fact, said, because we don't get pictures of it, but said to be all of John Dee's, John Dee, who worked with the Queen, who, the Spyglasses 007 guy, his collection, and supposedly the biggest personally owned collection anywhere, from anyone. The Vatican is, of course they have hundreds and thousands of books and probably aliens down there, but he had the biggest one. Also, what you don't know is he spent thousands of hours, hundreds of thousands of hours, sky watching for UFOs. While he's doing this, he's painting, he's writing in journals, he's studying dance, he's studying boxing. That's how that one eye was constantly staring. He and his best friend fought over a girl. He got hit so hard in the face that it hurt his eye. So anyway, he appeared in more films than most professional actors do. And until such time as it came to lay down another classic, he was always working. So it's not a stretch to say that music was being channeled through him, by him.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be.
I grew up with him during the Ziggy Stardust
kind of glam
era.
rock days.
Yeah, and his music highly, influenced me to start thinking, even go deeper into your mind, your thoughts. And it's awesome, the way he could do.
Yes.
And the lyrics he'd make you think. And
yes,
it's sad that we've lost him.
It's really sad. Now, in 78, most people started immersing themselves into his mysteries. And by the golden locks of Apollo, what a time it was to do it. Most people remember buying stage at Jason's Music and Luggage. Seems unloved today, but for me, maybe. And a final stepping into parallel dimensions. So, the mysteries of sound that bewitched so many people. Bowie and Eno's sync-driven symphonies from Low and Heroes. So many were enraptured by his music. He saw it as some sort of alien transmission. That's what he said. That his music were alien transmissions converted to vinyl through a new kind of modern electrical alchemy. So Bowie and the Man Who Fell to Earth had such a powerful effect on most people's emerging Gnostic awakenings at the time that they became major players in the first spiritual journey of his. There's a movie called Valis. The film within the novel was based on a man called Richard's experience of seeing Earth for the first time. Dick. His name's Dick. Okay, I'm moving on. And how it seemed to resonate so completely with his own inner turmoil. Now, not long after, 8-track tapes, you remember this? 8-track tapes of Hunky Dory, and not long after that, Lodger was released. And all of a sudden, hand-me-down rock stars from the 60s and 70s became irrelevant, counter-revolutionary even. There's a dividing line now. It was year zero, punk, post-punk, new wave, and the rest were new. Vanguard, the great wheel had turned. Only Bowie and his fellow followers like Fripp, Iggy. You guys remember Iggy?
Iggy Pop.
Yeah, Iggy Pop. Would seem even relevant in this new regime. Bowie, of course, had other plans. He released his now legendary string of classic albums under constant threat of financial ruin. The great Spiders from Mars lineup was broken up because of financial pressure. Now, thanks in large part to the drain on his accounts by his management team and his wife, who burned through his profits either with their endless partying extravagance or trying to launch hopeless careers of their own with his money. He'd seen a new generation of artists getting rich off of his ideas, and now he wanted to cash in. So during sessions for Under Pressure, Queen sold Bowie on the benefits he could reap from dumping RCA for the new EMI. So he'd made plutocrats out of the glam foursome. With an eye on the success the Rolling Stones and the Police were having, touring, doing large stadiums, Bowie set his sights on the American superstardom. You want to be star in music, you got to come to America. So his sexuality underwent public revision, with Bowie now claiming to have been a closet heterosexual. Whatever. He entered the studio with chic mastermind Nile Rodgers and new backing band, which included rising star Stevie Ray Vaughan, one of my big favorites, on guitar. We lost a legend when we lost him. Holy crap. So the result was Let's Dance with Stevie Ray Vaughan, bona fide blockbuster, and finally put Bowie on the top rank where he and his fans felt he belonged. But there was an incredible price to pay. This massive tour was planned, which Bowie, playing in American football stadiums and making sure he gave fans every penny's worth of entertainment. I saw Bowie on that tour, and while it was an amazing show, one of the best I've seen, I also felt something had changed. This was no longer my Bowie. It was someone else, and a lot of fans felt that way. He was put through the American prefab washer, basically, what they do to musicians to make them look glitz and glam and kill their talent totally. So suspicions were not dissuaded when Bowie rushed out Tonight, which featured two bona fide classics, Blue Jean and Loving the Alien, and a whole lot of filter, a whole lot of crap. Admittedly, Let's Dance had its share of filler stuff too. No signs that Bowie was bored in this new role because they tried to make him a teen star. And his 70s fans were confirmed by a long and for a time post-Tonight silence, punctuated by a few weak soundtrack numbers. So he re-emerged again because he refused to be that. He didn't want to be a teen idol. He re-emerged 87 with Never Let Me Down, an album that tried too hard to recapture Let's Dance formula and buried a lot of worthy songs in the histrionic production techniques of the time. He compounded the felony with Glass Spider Tour. Half-hearted return to the theatrical feeling of the Diamond Dogs era. Do you remember that? Without the Zeiss.
I love that Diamond Dogs, man. I loved that back then.
I remember that too. My parents, my parents played this, so I was surrounded with music. So it only, without the power of it, it was more like 75% cringe. It was, plus Peter Frampton tried to sing with him. It was ridiculous. So, sensing that he'd made all the wrong moves in a really short time, he tried to fix this. He did a bare bones greatest hits tour, 1990. But the backing band, aside from King Crimson, do you remember him, frontman, Adrian Belo.
Yes.
They sucked, like with a great big sucking sound, like a Hoover. It blew. It sucked and it blew. It was bad, 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 bad. So anyway, then he hooked up with Iggy's old rhythm section, the Sales Brothers, as in Soupy Sales. New guitarist Reeves Gabrels for Tin Machine. It looked and sounded like a midlife crisis. I'm sorry, Bowie, but it is a little bit, it was bad. A reunion with Nile Rodgers seemed promising, but this new record company went bankrupt as soon as Black Tie, White Noise was released, which was actually pretty good. So now the Archon, who is weak, has 3 names, basically. The first, Jabaloth. The second, Sackless. The third, Samuel. I'm reading from his writings. And he is impious in his arrogance, which is in for him. For he said, I am God, and there is no God besides me, for he is ignorant of his strength, the place from which he came. An excerpt from the Parcophon of John. Opening his eyes, he saw a vast quantity of matter without limit, and he became arrogant, saying, It is I who am God, and there is no other apart from me. When he said this, he sinned against the entirety. And a voice came forth from above the realm of absolute power, saying, You are mistaken, Samuel, which is now the God of the blind. It wouldn't be until Bowie abandoned his grasping for the mainstream and got his freak back. He's best when he flies his freak flag and doesn't try to be cute. Then he started to rediscover his Bowie-ness, a soundtrack for the British indie film The Buddha of Suburbia. Got Eno's attention again, and they took to the studio to record Outside, a sprawling, deliciously, you have to hear it. It's delicious. It's a slab of 200 proof Bowie, replete with ludicrous concept based on transgressive art, the millennia, even ritual murder. He opened himself for this. Opened himself like he was cutting his wrist and bleeding for us. So the plan for a trilogy never really materialized as Eno continued his career making producer, so that Bowie returned with Earthling, where the then trendy dance music dribblings were grafted onto a classic Bowie melody. Luckily, most of the songs survived this procedure. This is my favorite Bowie period for me, since he was just successful enough to be visible, but not so much as to be annoyingly repeated. In his band with Zach Alford, I think his last name, on the drums, Gail Ann Dorsey on the bass and vocals, long-time keyboardist Mike Garson, guitarist Gabriels, were hard-polished and just artsy enough to be kind of interesting. So unfortunately, it kind of came to a throbbing heart stop. 1999, when Bowie's instincts or the record company pressure or the better or worse of Him Again and Ours was released and attempted to appear to the then growing adult alternative contemporary or whatever the hell it was called market. Gabrielle's wasn't having any of it left, but fantastic CD artwork though. Bowie played around with a few ideas, a pin-ups to remakes of his 60s songs before cutting Heathen 2002 with Tony Visconti, producer of his late 70s stuff. Now, because of the realities of this new market, or simple maturity, maybe, Bowie dropped the attempts to appeal to the strange, younger market and made a classic Bowie album, returned to the old-fashioned songcraft, he called it, without any trendy bells, no trendy whistles. A new and larger band assembled. Bowie began touring, doing various media appearances. Now, the effect of Heathen was mitigated by a follow-up called Reality 2003, which in fairness may have been recorded to secure tour financing. A live DVD of a marathon reality tour bolsters that suspicion. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the stress of the road on the 56-year-old performer who had driven his body pretty hard in his younger days resulted in, they're calling it a coronary event. It's what I like to call a heart attack.
I would say so.
That's what I'm thinking. So it leads us back to a long radio silence. So the secret Bowie. Now, of course, part of Bowie's mystique is his lifelong immersion into the occult. OTO member Peter Koenig first explored this highly subjective, rambling essay called The Laughing Gnostic, which I read before, has been continually updated ever since. It touches on Bowie's repeated use of catchwords, imagery taken from occult orders like the Golden Dawn, while as his cocaine-fueled obsession with a whole bunch of stuff, and it was kind of coke-related in the 70s, mid-70s anyway. Bowie himself had always been cagey, quiet, secretive, occulted about his occult interests, preferring to keep an aura of uncertainty around him. And mystery, of course, like his contemporary Jimmy Page, who he actually shares the same birthday with. I didn't know that till a couple days ago. So all of this mystery and play will become really important shortly. So from 1997, so I have pieces of an interview. So were you involved in actual devil worship? Not devil worship, no. It was pure, straightforward, old-fashioned magic, says Bowie. The Aleister Crowley variety? No. I've always thought Crowley was a fake, a charlatan, a creep. He didn't use the word creep. It's a bad word that I would like to say right now very much, but I won't say it. It's a bad word. So, but there was a guy called Arthur Edward Wade, who was terribly important to me at the time. I love British accents, and you can say things like terribly, and it means good. Another called Dion Fortune, who wrote a book called Psychic Self-Defense. You had to run around the room getting bits of string and old crayons and draw funny things on the wall, and I took it all most seriously, he laughs, I drew gateways into dimensions, and I'm sure that for myself, I've really walked into other worlds. I drew things on walls and just walked through them. Saw what was on the other side. For those who don't know already, Wait. Wait is not only the man behind the definitive tarot, the Wait cards, as well as the author of the pictorial key to the tarot. He also initiated Crowley into the Golden Dawn. So David Bowie learned from the guy who taught Crowley. Not Crowley, God, I want to say this word so bad. He did not care for him. So.
No, David didn't.
He did not like him. And he calls him names, calls out his sexuality, which, I'm surprised to hear David say. So less ambivalent, I guess, is Bowie's obsession with UFOs, which dates back to the time as a UFO watcher in London, and looks through his entire record category from Memory of a Free Festival, 69, to Born of a UFO, 2013, and all points in between, possibly on the new album, I'm not sure yet. Such as Bowie's alien mystique, that a whole corpus of legend surrounding Bowie, UFOs, ETs arose in the rumor mill. ETs had been in the audience during his concert in Los Angeles Amphitheater, September 1974. People had mistaken them for Bowie clones he attracted. This is the mystique. Silver pentagrams marked on their foreheads had been interpreted as attempts to intimidate or copy his own facial decorations, but he had distinguished his own. They were there, these people. Their eyes never left them. He had counted 20 of them. There are pictures of them, and he was terrified that they would come backstage, that the time wasn't right. He said he knew these beings and they were not human. Seriously, you can look it up. Now, his act still had to be perfected, enhanced, taken to ultimate extremes. Read Jeremy Reed, Diamond Nebula, London, 1994, page 68. The man who fell to Earth was science fiction, but you have to wonder how exactly an alien came down to Earth would operate in our world, in front of us. Now, given the immense stellar distances, he would not travel physically, but would come in a form of astral travel, using technology that we can guess at. Might take refuge in a human being, preferably a fetus in which the personality has not yet formed. He may do so in 1947, year of Roswell and Kenneth Arnold. May do so in London, with a world capital filled with people calling out to the stars. He'd fill that host with powers far beyond that of ordinary humans, an insatiable need to experience as much of the world as possible, like the international celebrity with a storming libido would do. These powers may not be suitable for the human host, might begin to take their toll at a relatively early age, say in the host's body, mid-50s. It also led to a relatively early death, but it might also rally the host for one last great burst of productivity, leaving an epitaph to its presence here on Earth. I mean, just total speculation here, but those kinds of things don't happen in the real world, right? Either way, we have an incredible life to celebrate, and the most impressive catalog of rock. Bowie himself understood death was simply a movement. He called it from station to station. I have a feeling his spirit may linger for a while amongst those who loved him before boarding that 5:15. Now the foreshadowing. 1999, Bowie released Hours, which wasn't a great album, but featured some very interesting artwork, like the Gnostic bit. I put a picture up there. Also used numbers as letters. So it says Janus 3, 10, 16. Interesting. The thing is that the numbers used in his name is rather ominous graphic here. Includes 16 and 10. The year and the date of his death. The 3 is reversed like the face of Janus. May have a double meaning here, in that the third month, March, used to be the first month of the Roman calendar. Also, the rites of Janus, for whom January was named, were once held March 1st. So, coincidence. Weird. So, I mean, he had to use numbers instead of letters on the art. It was preordained or something. And dead David has his hand over his liver because he shows himself as two people, one watching, one lying on his lap, actually dead, and his hand is over his liver. So there's death imagery all over the album, including here on the cover. And again, go to Trace Elements and you just look up Bowie Starman Returns to the Sky. You can see the pictures. Now here on the CD, which Bowie is posing with himself in the 69 shape, the exact age of his death. And a barcode is curious as well, because if you flip it and rotate it, you have 10 and 16 plus a 43. For subtractory is 1. That's simple arithmetic. So you have 1, 10, 16. And by the way, the first song on the album right after this would be called Sunday. A lot of coincidences here. And it may all seem bizarre unless you know Bowie, who loved to throw occult clues and riddles all over his work. The flaming dove, the white stains from Kether to Malkuth, Golden Dawn, etc., etc. So for instance, see how he wrote his name in Hebrew script on an album spine, for no reason, mind you, almost begging for a quasi-Kabbalistic interpretation of the art. He told you to look. He wanted you to see. So coincidence. Decide for yourself. But I think anyone could have foreseen his death 17 years out. Even if consciously, if you're planning a death, you'd think it would have been Bowie. And yeah, that's ambiguous, but still, look at the I in the upside down name. So maybe it's no accident that his released first single, Lazarus, or El Osiris, on the 17th of December. The video was released January 7th this year. The Last Puzzle, initiated perhaps, Hours, David Bowie, Price List, interesting. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the weird Bowie Secret Sun connection, when one of his music videos replayed a scene that I detailed before, and in Nick Renford's Men in Black book too. So you have to remind that never get old, that he say all the time. Bowie's sexuality has always been a topic of debate, with those claiming that he's gay. His gay relationships were opportunistic. Most of his relationships were with men who would advance his career. But you have to remember at the time, people were hecka stoned. I don't know if they even noticed who they were doing what to. And that he was known for betting thousands of female groupies. One who after his death has just come out and said it was rape, but she had been a groupie a long time before she clung on to him. So, not buying it. And people who come out after someone's dead to make some money, please.
No, not buying it.
Not buying
it. Right?
Shut the hell up.
No.
Go back into your hole, you stupid bitch. Okay.
Find another groupie find another band to go after.
Yeah, find somebody, get your body back and see if someone else will have you. Now, according to T-Rex, Mark Boland, who is probably exaggerating for effect, that there were thousands of groupies, but we've heard these stories. My dad was around at the time. I've heard him tell people that these things happen. But, told by a former main man, a press officer, Lee Black Childers, that the real reason that Bowie moved to Berlin was to be with the drag star Robbie Haig. Don't know. He had fallen with on tour. That he also had liaisons with other performers there. I think many characteristic and charismatic performers of his type, Bowie's sexuality could not be easily defined or reduced, or should be, despite whatever is being said now. I met the man because of my father. I was very young. But children have feelings about people. I have an uncle who is, well, I call him uncle, but he was a friend of my grandfather's, very, very gay. I knew he was different. I didn't realize what gay was at the time. I did not get that feeling from David. He's a matter of fact.
No, neither did I, truthfully.
He, was sitting having coffee with my dad. I went over and immediately sat on his lap. I didn't do those kind of things. So I felt very comfortable. I get the heebie-jeebies from people who have always done that. So I'm not buying it. I felt very comfortable, very safe with this guy. And my dad would have beat the crap out of him if that was not a cool thing to happen. But Dad was lean back, very comfortable.
Let's look at the music industry for just a sec.
Please.
The thing about David supposedly being gay, you got to look back even years before that, even into the 50s, okay?
Yeah.
When they pushed that.
They did.
Sometimes they would push that. And
yeah. There's a lot. Oh, jeez.
It wasn't. Yes.
We're taking a break. Right?
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements Radio, here with DK, Tracey, and, of course, Chief Charles Twodog. Everyone wants me to keep going on this, so let's do it. There is a pattern going on with the deaths that have happened this year. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So let's look back at the stars of movies and TV and media and music that we've lost so far this year. Vilmos Zsigmond, Academy Award-winning cinematographer. He did Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He died at 85. We lost Craig Strickland, frontman for the country band Backroad Anthem. I don't know this guy. January 4th. But he was last seen on December 27th when his boat suddenly capsized in Oklahoma. He was 29. He was lost. I didn't know he was supposed to be duck hunting. Strange.
Yeah, that was strange.
Okay.
Very strange.
Robert Stigwood, former manager of Cream and the Bee Gees. January 4th, 81. He also produced Saturday Night Fever and Grease, which were kind of fun. I liked those ones. Pat Harrington Jr. died of Alzheimer's January 6th. He's best known for the Superintendent Snyder in the 70s. You remember One Day at a Time, that sitcom?
Yes, I do.
I liked him.
Yeah, he played Spider. Yeah, I like that man.
He was, I don't have his age.
He was 80.
Was he in his 80s?
80. I think
No.
he was 80-something.
Holy crap. It's one of those people that, they always stay the same age in your head.
Yeah.
Sion Blake, who starred in the British soap EastEnders in the 90s, was found buried in her garden with her 2 children on January 5th. We have no idea how, why, who. It's still under investigation. Do you guys remember her? I didn't watch EastEnders much. Then, of course, Bowie, January 10th, 2 days after his release of his 25th album, Black Star, 69 years old. Alan Rickman, British film icon, worldwide for roles known in Die Hard and all the Harry Potter films, died January 14th from cancer. He too was 69. And if you remember him in Harry Potter, this man had the best walk ever. The way he'd walk out of a room was freaking epic. He'd turn his head and then his body would go. And it was like, there he is, gone.
Yeah.
Celine Dion's husband and former manager. Sorry, guys. Go ahead and talk, Twodog, while I get this.
We also have lost one of the singers of the Eagles. Just I heard yesterday, and let's not forget Lemmy Kills Mister from the band Motorhead, that actually played a birthday concert a couple of days before he died. 70 years old. It's how do I put it? Incredibly, it's shocking, to be honest. And we're losing people after people, person after person of influential, backing and thoughts. Now, a lot of people may not like this band, but they influenced a lot of people as far as the WWE, as far as Triple H himself, who come out with, how would I say, his music when he would come out in his entrance. It was incredible, the amount of influence this band had over many people. The thing that many used to say was, you got one life. You got one life to live. Live it to the fullest. Do what you want to do as long as you don't hurt nothing or nobody.
Sorry, guys, that was my son, who also has no sense of time. Maybe it's a guy thing. So, Celine Dion lost her husband, and then 2 days later lost her brother. In the same, it was just horrible. And then Glenn Frey, singers of the Eagles,
Glenn Frey, yes,
on the 18th, co-writer of hits like Hotel California,
Yes.
which is very interesting, and Take It Easy.
Natalie Cole, too.
So we lost a lot this year.
We've lost Natalie Cole also. Let me see. Winstar told me, my wife told me, that we've actually lost Annette Funicello too.
Yeah, that's we lost her in 2013. I don't know why suddenly that information is coming up, but that's not true. That was 2013 she died of
I'm like,
MS.
why are you? If it's 2013, that's what I'm trying to figure out also.
Yeah, it's a really
3 years
weird
ago.
thing.
Why are you just now talking about it?
And I had spoken of it before. We had talked about it, but why it came into people's consciousness that it was all over Facebook, and I'm like, guys, no, she's been gone for a while.
Yes.
Now, he died on a Sunday, David, again, but he left a video haunting in its foreshadowing called Lazarus. Lazarus, named for a biblical figure who rose from the dead. It depicts a singer in what appears to be a hospital bed with a bandage across his eyes and coins for the ferryman over each eye. The video unfolds. David briefly levitates, later depicted trembling with his arms outstretched. Lazarus is also the title of an off-Broadway production for which David Bowie wrote the score. So at the end of the video, a twitching Bowie retreats backward into a wardrobe chest, as if it were a tomb. Now, the visual clues weren't enough. The opening lyrics of the song are, "Look up. Here, I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen." The lyrics end with, "Oh, I'll be free, just like that blue bird. I'll be free. Ain't that just like me?" So, the video was released on January 7th, 2 days before his death. The symbolism hardly seems coincidental. On a Facebook post Monday, Bowie's producer, Tony Visconti, called the album Black Star, Bowie's parting gift to us all. And I have an image on the page for you. Also, a strange image of Bowie. He took probably the smoothest mugshot ever. He looks really good in it. So, warrior poet. I didn't know that he was into boxing, but he'd been into boxing his whole life, I guess. Liked it.
You wouldn't think, truthfully, you wouldn't think just looking at him, as, on stage and how he was himself, that he would even be into that.
Yeah, it looks kind of sissy boyish, but no. He was scrappy.
Well, let's go back to where we were just a second, as far as the musical industry trying to say David was gay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go way back into the 50s for just a minute with the musical and Little Richard.
Yeah.
Who was not gay.
Well,
were they trying to say he wasn't?
Yeah, we have to realize that there are some cultural differences here. Black people in general are a little more fluid in sexuality. We enjoy a certain flamboyance in our men. Put it that way. But in the cultures around this world, the ancient ones, there's a third, there's a fourth, there's 5 genders. And on nearly every continent, for all recorded history, thriving cultures have recognized, revered, and integrated way more than 2 genders. 2 genders is a new term. So terms such as transgender and gay are strictly new constructs here that assume 3 things. That there are only 2 sexes, male and female, as many as two sexualities, straight or gay, and only two genders, man and woman. So, if these were a religious sect with extreme views on sex and gender, like we're seeing, communities discovered in 1771 in Western Russia believed that Adam and Eve had halves of the forbidden fruit grafted on their bodies in the form of testes and breasts. Therefore, they routinely castrated male children and amputated breasts of women to return themselves to a prior state, the state before original sin. Sex, vanity, beauty, and lust were considered the root of all evil. Long before Cook's arrival in Hawaii, a multi-gender tradition existed amongst the people. The indigenous society there, the Mahu, could be biologically male or female, inhabiting a gender role somewhere between or encompassing both masculine and the feminine. Their social role was sacred as educators, and the shamanistic ancient traditions and rituals. Pre-Columbian Andean culture, the Incas worshipped something called Chiche, a dual-gendered god. A third gender ritual attendants or shamans performed sacred rituals to honor this god. These shamans wore androgynous clothing as a visual sign of the third space that negotiated between the masculine and the feminine, the present and the past, the living and the dead. So prior to colonization, the Ankole people in what is now known as Uganda elected a woman to dress as a man and thereby become an oracle to the god Musaka. The Sakvalas of Madagascar, little boys thought to have feminine appearance, were raised as women. The Antidoi and the Huva called their gender classes the Sakrata, who, like women, wore their hair long, decorative knots, inserted silver coins into pierced ears, wore many bracelets on their arms, their ankles, their wrists. Two Spirits, of course, interweaves a traditional story that we have heard before.
Yeah.
Of people who are not stuck to one gender. We allowed this. It was not looked at as a bad thing. Our new roles in this society, which, Twodog was alluding to about the 70s. The guys are all, especially with the British invasion, with their little fluffy shirts, with their little ruffles, and incredibly tight pants.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things we saw. It just became a big deal recently. But we have always welcomed, in the ancient cultures, differences, and saying there are not just two sexes, that sex is fluid, and sometimes we dressed our people up, boys that were girls or girls that were boys, to do certain ritual practices. This was allowed. This was always known. It was never, you weren't hated for this. It's only the new modern Christianity, which is ridiculous. Most of the new religions are ridiculous because, let's face it, there's a lot of gayness going on there. And then we have the Navajo, who said they had 4 genders. in another time, people like this were honored. One man actually recently was murdered. Begins a documentary called Two Spirits, which I think I put on the page. Pretty sure.
Yeah, so, I remember that.
Do you remember that one? The film looks at the Navajo belief of the Nadlihi, the interrelationship between masculine and feminine within each individual person, and mourns the death of Fred Martinez, a male-bodied person with a female nature to him. Martinez is the youngest victim of a hate crime when he was murdered at the age of 16 back in 2001. So Two Spirits explores his life. Anad Lihi, a boy who is also a girl, and examines the nature of nature and the spiritual nature of this. This was always allowed. So in the Navajo teaching, in the old traditional world, 4 basic genders. Women, first gender, because Navajo is actually a matrilineal society. Men are looked at as the second gender. The third gender is the Nadlihi, who is born as a male person but functions in the role of a girl in early childhood and in the role of a woman in adulthood. And it's just the opposite for the fourth gender. Those who were born biologically female but function in the role of a boy, early childhood usually, matured into a man, and conducts their life in that gender identity. So in today's society, people are labeled as male and female, and that's pretty much it. But many feel that they are two spirits, transgender as we call it, as well as gay and bisexual people. They're looked at as freaks of nature, but they are simply an expression of nature that many have opted to simply judge out of hate. So in this new Western culture, when they say a girl, there's an automatic assumption that the girl is female. Or when they see a boy, they never pause to think that that boy may be female. So the masculine and feminine are often reflected, so-called completely, in the body of one person. But
it was also in native thinking, in indigenous people's thinking in some nations here on Turtle Island, is that if you're like that, say gay, say just you're a guy and you think as a woman and you dress as a woman, as far as like that in that aspect, it means to a lot of us back then that the best of both worlds, male and female.
Yes, and a lot of in native culture, and I mean native first peoples everywhere on this planet, what someone chooses to identify as, because there's usually a different dress, different hair, depending on who you want to be. That had nothing to do with who you were having sex with. So gay or lesbian are relatively new terms in the consciousness. It was more you identified as male or female. Who you had sex with was your business. It was a business between you and whoever you're having sex with. That had nothing to do with your identity as a woman or a man. And they were people who always said that in childhood, someone knows. Your body may be male, but you feel female, and that was allowed, and vice versa. So
you may be born male, but a lot of things inside your mind, your heart, the way you walked, you might think of yourself as female, or vice versa. It's the same. today's society is, you know,
So
how to put it,
judgmental,
judgmental, hateful, to be
hateful,
honest.
angry, bitter, horrific,
Mhm.
slaughtery.
Yes.
We need to stop and, let people be what they are. It doesn't matter, It doesn't matter
No,
who's...
it really doesn't.
Rape is wrong. Mutual sex is not.
Yes.
If we could love each other more, things would be very different. And, as we start descending towards Earth, we have a class action lawsuit filed against government, the state of Michigan, over the Flint water crisis, which is friggin' horrific. Horrific. The state of Michigan is being sued. All the plaintiffs in the suit claim they are suffering injury from drinking contaminated water after the city moved its source of its water to nearby Flint River for a cost-cutting move. The governor declared a state of emergency January 5th over problems with lead in the drinking water. The same day, federal officials confirmed they were now going to investigate. Members of the Michigan National Guard, representatives of FEMA, also sent to Flint to assist the state and local authorities in distributing clean water to those who need it. Defendants listed in this case are the emergency financial manager, who said they knew this was coming. Share has also sent over 100,000 bottles of water, and some newly repatriated Muslims have sent water from all over the country. 30,000 bottles of water for the victims of the poisoning. If this is not the height of racism, the racism in the States right now and Canada, it's so the basis of hate. We had another all-white Oscars, which is BS. Why the whitewashed, male-dominated Oscars? Well, really, it sucks. Again, big sucking sound, hoovery. In Alabama, an officer was acquitted after paralyzing an Indian grandfather with a body slam. A grandfather.
There you go again.
It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous what's going on right now on this planet.
It's like a non-stop hate that as far as all of nature itself, it's not fighting, but the human being, no matter what race, creed, or color you are, won't stop. And we are part of nature in itself. But we can't look at it's like we can't look at each other in that aspect. We gotta pick who's what, and I don't like you because you're this nation, and it's incredibly stupid.
It's so deep, the hate that's going on right now, and the world's inequality right now. The rich can no longer pretend that their wealth benefits anyone else but them. The whole thing, the trickle-down theory, is BS. It's complete BS. We're talking about the night of the living dead. And how we're wrecking this planet right now. Like, we are having unprecedented disasters right now on this planet. Unprecedented disasters. And the racist stuff that is happening, we can't ignore it. I can't pretend it's not going on when it is. It's going on. Look at what's happening here. And by the way, as soon as some of the sanctions were lifted in Iran, contrary to the warmongers' ideas, Iran let people go. And when we want to talk about countries attacked by bombing, sabotage, or attempted government overthrow since World War II, Iran would have nothing in its column. United States, I put up a chart. There's a big list.
Yeah.
From China to Libya, there has been a push for non-stop hating. And right now, let's be honest here again, and look this beast in the freaking face for once. Because soon, minorities will be the majority in the U.S. It's a big deal. It's a big deal because the racism is ridiculous. Now, 4 years ago, more non-white babies were screeching into American hospitals than white babies. By 2040, racial minorities will be the majority in the United States for the first time in the nation's history. A huge shift. Some undoubtedly would resist this transformation. Now, the fear of a minority majority is not much younger than the United States itself, and we've explored that again. From the very beginning, this place called America, the social thinkers feared anything that might threaten a pure Anglo-centric utopia. Even the presence of, and this is a quote, stupid, swarthy Germans kept Ben Franklin up at night. Swarthy Germans. In the early 20th century, the popularity of pseudoscience, eugenics, enabled Congress to restrict immigration by Eastern and Southern Europeans. Further laws created to restrict Asians and the Middle East. Later waves of immigration and politically galvanized blackness stoked twin fears: invasion from without, rebellion from within. With the exception of one political figure's rhetoric, today's worries about the racial makeup of the U.S. remain unspoken amongst America's blue states. Other political factions are more outspoken about their fears, especially racial tensions explode on the nightly news. Now, if history teaches us anything, we have every reason to be excited about more immigration. Every surge of immigration to the U.S. can be explained as an attempt by a people group to pursue a better life through dogged determination. Whether they're fleeing famine, like the Irish, religious persecution, poor economic conditions, like the Germans, the Italians, the Poles, the Jews, the Czechs, the Slavs, the Slovenes, the Serbs, the English. Every one of these groups originally was feared, then tolerated, then peacefully pretty much ignored. Chinese, Mexican, other groups that followed, following the exact same path of hard work, gradual expansion into civic economic participation. There's simply no historic evidence to believe this behavior won't continue with future waves of immigration. I told you years ago that nothing was going to happen. Get your little asses used to it. Every time that people have thought that a new group of outsiders was going to take away your nasty little Americanness or Canadianness or Greekness or whateverness, Loch Ness monsters, their presence helped to fulfill the original promise of the nation: freedom, peace, inclusivity, making us a people as a whole. There would be no America without the people from other places. Furthermore, minority majority in 2040 will mean that people from outside are still trying to get in. They'll inject desperately needed youth, vigor, to a white population decline. Immigration will be great for the economy, especially in tech sector, where we've already learned that immigration always creates jobs everywhere. So keep your little fear-mongering butts away from me. It's also more difficult for government to ignore or abuse minority communities who don't possess the political power to defend their interests, like when Robert Moses literally steamrolled through the impoverished New York City communities to make way for his highway system, displacing hundreds of thousands of families, shunting them into a cloistered, socially annihilating housing project. Similarly, examples of urban planning have afflicted black communities, Baltimore, St. Paul. American history is riddled with painful examples of enforced segregation. All the discrimination, the housing policies, in general, disinterest in the plight of anyone who is not blonde and blue-eyed, like those naughty, swarthy Germans. Can you imagine? I have never seen a swarthy German in my life. But, Benjamin Franklin was really scared of you people. So this politics, this disenfranchisement, the huge sways of American population and shunted economy, America will reckon with results of these policies for generations. Women like strong men. If he's got dark skin, she's gonna pick him. Period. I'm not the only one who likes warrior poets, my children. So there are many things trying to eliminate us as a people. It still doesn't count people like myself. What are you going to call me? Seriously. My skin is pretty fair. But I'm not white. I'm not black. I'm not Indian. Depending on whether I'm with those parts of the family who will say, oh, the how you are. Yes, you are. That's, it's fine. But to me, I'm not caring. Not caring. There's so many more mixed people right now. Like it or not, you look around this planet, most of the beings are dark-haired and dark-eyed and brown-skinned. So, wake up.
Well, here in this day and time, right now, since we have an election coming up for the leadership of America right now. Going right with what you were talking about, Tracey, is Mr. Donald Trump, which is throwing the racism card. I think every time he speaks. Right now, the Parliament of England, in the Parliament they're actually having votes to keep this man out of the UK.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Nobody wants your little muskrat wearing. What's he have on his head? It's nasty.
I don't know.
So let's tunnel down a little bit, because there's a couple disasters going on in America, and you know that I can't concentrate, so we're going to be doing a 12-hour show if I start on the other shit that's going on. And I'm sorry so much for saying shit, but it came out. So then we have Oregon. Militia. Nuts. Are holding the Peyote, history and artifacts hostage right now. And this weekend, Burns Paiute tribal chairman spoke to the Indian County Today Media Network about the status of the occupation, it's a friggin' occupation, of the wildlife refuge in Oregon. That they are really worried about the status of the artifacts down there. Now on Friday, last week, the tribe delivered a letter to the federal agencies, including the U.S. Attorney and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, demanding prosecution of this Bundy and other armed militants occupying the wildlife reserve. If the occupiers disturb, damage, remove, alter, deface any more, because they've been caught doing it, archaeological research on this property, there are approximately 4,000 artifacts belonging to the tribe in the building that the militants are holding. The occupation entering its third week. Any other colored person, I mean, if you were a little bit with a tan, your ass would have been shot, they'd have called you terrorists, and this would have been over. The tribe is demanding federal action under both the Archaeological Resources Protection Act and the Protection Against Bad Men provision in the treaty that the tribe signed with the freaking United States. 1868.
It's Indian land they're on right now that never was gave up to any treaty.
No.
And the nation wants them out because they're actually doing some. They shouldn't be there, to be honest.
No. Under ARPA, a federal law authorizing law enforcement and penalties in the defense of sites like this, removing artifacts is a felony. The first-time offenders can be fined $20,000, imprisoned up to a year. Bundy supporters have damaged sites before. These supporters, most notably when they drove their ATVs through a canyon trail in Utah in protest of federal lands, trampling the ruins of homes belonging to ancient Pablo Hans. I don't know how you say it. Now, the Southern Paiute tribe in Nevada have accused the Bundy family of defacing petroglyphs in Gold Butte repeatedly. And incidentally, the Southern Paiute community members held a rally last week in Vegas in support of the tribes. Now they understand this what happened. They took a bulldozer and built a line around their headquarters. Now it's noted that in the past, when a water line was put in at the refuge, the tribe's Cultural Resources Department oversaw the work to make sure none of the artifacts or the sites were disturbed, that they had a good working relationship with them. That is, the relationship has evolved for the better. Now the community is reaching out. They've gotten calls from ranching families who actually are supporting the tribe, not these occupiers. They've seen the Paiute campsites out there. They've been in the area and they know how things are. You can't go and bulldoze things. I don't know what these people are doing, if they're doing things just to get a rise or to be a martyr. All they are doing is making enemies of the people they said they supported. Now, Carla Burnside, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the archaeologist at the refuge, has told the tribe that she has seen pictures in news reports of militants sitting in her office, even at her desk, with files open that contain sensitive information about things that belong to the tribe. And last week, the Burns Paiute Council passed a resolution to formally recognize Malheur Lake and its shoreline as sacred places, traditional cultural properties of the tribe, and cited the tribe's own Aboriginal lands protection policy, which covers the tribe's territory beyond current trust lands, which defines cultural resources as any materials, objects of human life, or activities that are of a cultural, historical, sacred, spiritual, traditional interest to the tribe. This shall include all remains, sites, objects, structures, artifacts, implements, plants, animals, locations within the tribe's territory. The occupation leader, Amand Bundy, from Arizona, son of Clive and Bundy, the Nevada rancher, involved in a standoff with the federal government over a $1 million in unpaid grazing fees on public land, has offered to meet with the tribe, but the tribe says he has no right to hold their history hostage, refused to grant him even an appearance of such an authority by meeting with him. Some of the members of the community were open to them when they first came, but now the country chained and locked everything up, the county, and said, no, you can't have your meeting in town. Now, the county officials have stated they will not allow the militants to use any county-owned building for fear of more takeovers. They tried to ask us for gathering center facility was booked up.
Right.
So they just laughed and said that they want to use their salvage facilities. They tried to make this takeover legal. Now, Rodrigue was referring a Harney County Committee safety website by supporters of the takeover who profess to exist to secure property and lives of the association members from threats from the savages, quote unquote. That's what this a-hole said. The support that the tribe is getting is overwhelming. The tribe has received letters of support from other tribes, like the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, the Klamath Tribe of North California, even further down, First Nations tribes in Canada, and Native American organizations and Mexican American organizations. These things are empowering. And when they had their press conference, we didn't know the attendance and the response was going to be as big as it was. He really appreciates all the Native people and their concern, because it could be any one of us that this is going to happen to. Now, Rodrigue told Indian County Today Network that it is not only title to the land that matters to her, but the plants, the wildlife, the land, some of which are going extinct now.
Yes.
The plants we are named after grow in the banks of Harney and Malheur Lake. If they put their cattle here, and Bundy has called for the land to be returned to private ranchers, they destroy these plants. The plants will never grow back. They grow only there. So, this protest...
Now here's my thought on this, Tracey.
Go on.
Just a second.
Yeah, please.
What this militia, or so to speak, is trying to say is that America is trying to kill off the rancher, okay, and take the rancher's land. Okay, that's what they're trying to say. My point is, if you have a problem with the government of America for taking your land or whatever, why are you going on Indian land to fight this?
Yeah.
Don't you go to who's who the problem is? If the Paiute Nation does not want them there, why are you putting us in the middle of your fight? And if you're destroying our artifacts and our land and all of nature in itself, which seems to be, you think we're not going to talk about that or stand for that? We stand for the land. We're caretakers. But if you have a problem with that, you're going to go on someone else's land to fight it? Doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. Other than this Bundy had no problem taking money from the federal government.
Oh, no.
At all. This militia is standing their ground, but the local residents want them out of there. They want them gone. That's just not just the natives. The Oregon militia, okay, armed. Let's remember armed militia. Traveling from out of state, flock to and transform this refuge, which is a tight-knit community, by the way. So, heavily armed men.
Yeah.
People don't know when they will see their children again. A 37-year-old Arizona warehouse worker said goodbye to her kids 10 days ago, and for the last week been stationed full-time inside a federal building in a remote part of the desert, hundreds of miles from home. Cooper is one of the few female members of this armed militia that forced their way into the headquarters of a national wildlife refuge last Saturday, taking over a number of buildings. Cooper and dozens of other protesters say they are standing up for land use rights, fighting the federal government over oppressive regulations that hurt the ranchers. The militia has trespassed on a number of federal properties. So,
trespassing on Indian land as well.
With each passing day, the occupiers have further transformed this public property into their living space. This is anyone else, they'd be dead.
Oh yes, definitely. They would have done and annihilated. You
They'd
know
be
that.
Dead. Oh yeah. Yeah. The Paiute are hoping this doesn't come to bloodshed. They're hoping.
Here's the biggest, funniest. Oh my God! It's just to me, it's how they put it. World media, as far as the television here in America, and they say they do news everywhere in the world on everything.
Yep.
Why are they not saying anything when it comes to us? And they're on Indian land doing the wrong thing. So why is CNN and the rest not saying anything?
So
we're still invisible people, evidently.
These militants, this specific Patriots Network, arrived in Burns, Oregon, claiming to be there to protect either Ruby Ridge or Waco by providing a buffer between Ammon Bundy, son of Nevada rancher who drove BLM officers off his land with guns, 2014, in law enforcement. Carrying guns, they presented a resolution to the FBI and local enforcement calling for the return of the land to the people of Harney County. Surprisingly, recommended co-management with the Paiute tribe. Now, Burns Paiute tribal chairman has stated to the media, her irritation with Bundy and the militia supporters' goal of giving the land back to ranchers, it's been validated. We've been here for 15,000 years. Mm-hmm. These people are ignorant of history, and they don't think about the statements they are making. They are misinformed. He actually says a bad word. I won't say it. Can I say it? Okay, I'm not going to say it. So the Northern Paiutes signed a treaty with the United States government 1868 that remains, that was not ratified, and the land, including that of the wildlife refuge, remained unceded tribal territory. That means we don't have a deal. We didn't give it to you. There's lots more. Go to my page and read it, and that it can't be 2 hours. Okay, I guess it was 2 hours.
Thanks for having me, Trace.
Thanks for being here. We're going to be back Tuesday. Tony's going to be with me because I need help and adult supervision really bad. Okay.
I'll be right there, hon.
Awesome. Bye for now, guys. Thank you
for
everything, and